Good evening, friends, and welcome back to the Front Porch, here at the little station on Commercial Street in Atchison, Kansas. Pull up a rocking chair. Tonight we're talking about a tall girl adventure called The Night the Mountains Kept Watch. One of those stories that reminds us some nights stay with us long after the campfire's gone out.
Yeah, it really is just the perfect night for this kind of story, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the town is finally asleep. You can hear the crickets down in the grass.
It's barely. Yeah.
The porch light is on. It just feels right. And, while we're sitting out here, we're doing a bit of a deep dive into this specific story from the Tall Girl Files.
Because it's such a quiet story.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to unpack this quiet, defining narrative. We're looking at a young girl facing a solo overnight in the vast Sierra Nevada mountains. And we want to explore why the quietest moments, the ones where literally nothing action-packed happens, why those are the moments that actually rewire us.
Right, because this isn't an action movie.
No, not at all.
She isn't like fighting off a grizzly bear or dangling from a cliff. There's no adrenaline-fueled survival sequence. It's really just a study of what happens in the silence.
Yeah, and it raises this huge question for you, the listener, which is why do childhood adventures, especially these deeply quiet ones, become these lifelong memories?
We always expect the big moments to announce themselves,
Yeah.
with a brass band or some huge explosion.
That's fireworks.
Exactly. But structurally, it's often these profoundly quiet nights that actually shift the tectonic plates of who we are.
What we really want to dig into today is how that shift actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because the quiet, it doesn't mean it's easy.
Oh, not at all. The silence is a pressure cooker.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're going to tease apart the climax of this story, which is this moment deep in the pitch black night where there is a sudden rustling in the dark, a snapped branch.
Drawfly.
Right, just a snapped branch. And this young girl, completely alone, has to make a choice between surrendering to her wildly running imagination or trusting the reality of the wilderness.
But to understand why that snapped branch is so terrifying, we really have to go back to what the mountains had already done to her before the sun even set.
Yes, the psychology of the departure.
Yeah.
So let's set the scene here. Tall Girl is on an outward-bound expedition.
Which is a big deal in itself.
It is. And to understand the gravity of it, you have to look at Kurt Hahn, the guy who founded Outward Bound. He believed that modern civilization was basically insulating young people from struggle.
Yeah, that we were just too protected.
Right. He thought that to truly know yourself, you had to be completely stripped of your social scaffolding.
Which brings us right to that incredible moment before her solo overnight. The instructor is giving them their final advice before sending everyone off to their separate campsites.
I love this part.
Me too. He says, the first few hours, most people think about everyone else. After that, they usually begin discovering themselves.
And that isn't just some, poetic advice. That is a profound observation about how our brains work.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when you're isolated like that, your brain doesn't just immediately shut off its social processing. You have this thing in your brain called the default mode network.
Right, the background hum.
Exactly. When you aren't doing a specific task, this network just hums along. And a huge part of what it does is social simulation. You're thinking about, well, what are my friends doing? What is my family eating for dinner back home?
Or agonizing over a conversation you had yesterday.
Exactly. You project your mind outward because we are deeply, deeply social creatures. You're trying to maintain that invisible web of connections you just left behind.
But that mental chatter, it needs fuel.
It does.
It needs the constant input of human interaction to keep spinning. And when you are just sitting there alone on a piece of granite in the Sierra Nevada, eventually that social fuel just runs out.
The silence pushes back.
It does. The brain realizes, oh, there's no social problem to solve here. There's no hierarchy to navigate. There's no audience.
No one to perform for.
Right, so the default mode network has to quiet down, and that's exactly what the instructor meant. After you spend hours agonizing over everyone else, the noise fades, and you're just left with yourself. You have to turn inward.
And she's doing this in an environment that is just overwhelmingly massive. Picture the geography here. She hikes up past the tree line.
Leaving all the shelter behind.
Yeah, she leaves the canopy of the forest and walks out onto this bare granite. And in the afternoon sun, it just shines like this ancient, immovable cathedral.
It's intimidating.
Very. She feels the immense scale of these mountains.
Right?
They are huge, they are ancient, but more importantly, they are completely indifferent to her existence.
And that indifference, that is the key to why nature is such a profound teacher.
How so?
Well, think about childhood. When you're a child, your whole world, your house, your school, your town, it's designed to protect you. It responds to you. If you're cold, someone turns up the thermostat.
Right, you get a blanket.
Exactly. If you're hungry, food is made. If you fall, well, there's a paved road that was smoothed out for you. The environment caters to you.
It rearranges itself for your comfort.
But the wilderness? It absolutely does not. The mountains do not fluff a pillow for tall girl.
No, they don't.
They don't welcome her. But crucially, they don't reject her either. As the story notes, this isn't cruelty, it's just honesty.
I love that distinction in the file. Mountains did not try to do anything. That line really sticks with you. Because cruelty implies intent, you know?
Right, like the mountain wants to hurt you.
Exactly. But the mountain doesn't want anything. It just exists. And stepping into that reality is essentially stepping into adulthood.
Oh, for sure.
I think that's why coming-of-age stories never grow old. Because every single one of us at some point has to face that exact moment, realizing the universe doesn't revolve around us.
It's a recalibration of the ego. It humbled you.
But the story has this brilliant twist right there. It doesn't just leave her feeling crushed by the macro scale of the mountains. It immediately zooms in on the micro.
The purple flower.
Yes. She's walking across these massive shelves of granite, and she crouches down to look at this tiny purple flower.
Just growing right out of a crack in the solid stone.
Right. It's no bigger than her thumbnail. And she thinks about what this fragile thing goes through. How the snow covers it in the winter, how the wind just scrapes it, how the water freezes in the cracks and literally splits the rocks apart.
And yet, it grows.
It grows. It doesn't seem brave. It just grows where it has room.
If you think about the physics of that flower, it's incredible. It's exactly what G.K. Chesterton called tremendous trifles.
Oh, explain that for a second.
Well, think about what it takes for a flower to grow in solid granite. Water has to seep into this microscopic fissure, freeze, expand, and crack the stone by like a fraction of a millimeter.
Over decades.
Over centuries.
Right.
Just to create enough dust and space for a seed to take hold. It is a biological miracle happening in the harshest place on Earth.
But it looks so ordinary.
Right, and Chesterton wrote extensively about this, how something small and ordinary is actually an extraordinary miracle if you just stop and look at it. A tiny flower in a granite crack is a tremendous trifle.
Which really ties into the whole philosophy of Chesterton Radio, doesn't it? That ordinary things are extraordinary.
Exactly. Mystery exists everywhere if we just exercise our eyes. If we stop rushing past the world and actually look at it, we see these startling facts. The flower is doing what Tall Girl is trying to do. It isn't trying to conquer the mountain.
It isn't planting a flag on the summit.
No ego involved. It just wants to exist, to grow in the space it's been given. It's this quiet, unpretentious courage, pure presence.
But, and this is a massive but, that brutal, indifferent honesty of the mountains is one thing in the bright, warm afternoon sun, when you can see the flower, when you can see the valleys.
When you feel safe.
Right. But when the sun drops behind the ridge, that reality shifts entirely. The landscape doesn't change by a single atom. The granite is the exact same granite.
But the psychological landscape goes off an absolute cliff.
Totally. Let's talk about that biological shift when the sun goes down.
It's a profound transition. Evolutionarily speaking, humans are apex predators in the daylight. But in the dark, we are prey.
And our bodies know it.
They absolutely know it. It's hardwired. When the ambient light fades, the cones in your eyes, the ones that process color and fine detail, they just shut down. And the rods take over.
The ones that just see shapes and movement.
Right. You lose your visual acuity. And when your brain loses its primary sense, it compensates by hyperactivating your hearing and your amygdala.
The fear center.
Yes. Your brain starts frantically searching for threats.
So a shadow at noon, which was just a, nice spot to cool off, becomes a shadow at midnight.
And a shadow at midnight is a creature.
It's a monster. It's a biological siren screaming that you never should have left your house.
And as the story points out, imagination becomes stronger when sight grows weaker.
Yeah.
Fear wants to fill the dark with monsters because it's safer to imagine a monster and be wrong than to assume it's just the wind and get eaten.
Exactly. Your brain is just a pattern recognition machine. Without clear data, it connects dots that aren't there. A rustling leaf becomes a predator. A tree trunk becomes a towering figure.
Which brings us right to the climax of her night.
Yes. She's lying there in her sleeping bag. It is pitch black. The silence is heavy. And suddenly, she hears a loud, heavy rustling in the trees.
A branch snaps.
A branch snaps. And you can feel her heart leap into her throat. You can practically feel the adrenaline spike.
Her hand instinctively goes to her headlamp.
It's the most human instinct in the world, isn't it? To turn on the light, banishing the dark, to reclaim that visual dominance. We just want to shine a blinding beam into the woods and identify the threat.
But she doesn't.
No, right there. With her finger on the button, she makes a deliberate choice. She leaves the light off. She pulls her hand away.
It is such a remarkable moment of executive function overriding the primitive fight-or-flight response, because fear demands action. Her amygdala is screaming at her to fight, flee, or shine a light at it.
But by leaving it off, she's engaging her prefrontal cortex.
Right, she's choosing restraint. She allows the darkness to reveal what is actually there, on its own terms. She gives the silence a chance. And what steps into the moonlight?
Just a deer.
Just a gentle, quiet deer, stepping carefully into the clearing.
Now, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Because framing this as a beautiful moment of, quiet courage, isn't that a bit romanticized?
How do you mean?
Well, from a pure wilderness survival standpoint, leaving your light off when a heavy animal is approaching is incredibly dangerous. Right? That could have been a mountain lion. It could have been a bear.
It very well could have been.
So if it had been a predator, leaving the light off would be a fatal error. Isn't praising her for this just survivor's bias? Like, where is the line between quiet courage and just foolish passivity?
That is a phenomenal question, and it cuts right to the tension in these narratives. You're right. If it were a grizzly bear, making noise and using light is the protocol. But we have to distinguish between action driven by panic and action driven by assessment.
Okay, unpack that.
When you instantly hit the light in sheer terror, you blind yourself to the periphery. You lose your night vision completely for the next 20 minutes, and you reveal your exact position while you're still disoriented.
Yeah, makes sense.
The courage here isn't passive acceptance of death. It's about pausing the panic reflex. It's taking 3 seconds to breathe, to listen to the cadence of the footsteps.
Oh, because a deer steps differently than a bear.
Exactly. She allows the natural illumination of the moon to provide context before reacting blindly. She chose to hold her ground and observe. That's the difference between bravery and recklessness.
Recklessness is thrashing around with a flashlight.
Right, and bravery is sitting still long enough to actually see reality.
That's a great way to put it. But it also brings up this fascinating paradox. Her imagination is almost a liability out there, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
It's exactly what makes the snapping branch so terrifying. If she didn't have an active imagination, she wouldn't conjure fanged monsters. A literal person would just think, biological organism, and go to sleep. Her imagination is her own worst enemy.
It is, but it's also her greatest asset. That duality is everywhere in great literature. Think about Ellen Montgomery's Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, of course. The Haunted Woods.
Yes. Anne Shirley has this incredibly vivid, dramatic imagination, and she completely terrifies herself by imagining ghosts and wailing white ladies in the spruce wood between her house and Diana's.
She refuses to walk through it after dark.
Right, because her imagination actively creates the monsters. But, and this is the crucial part, it is that exact same imagination that allows Anne to see the breathtaking beauty of the world during the day. You can't sever the two.
So the same imagination that conjures the monsters is what allows Tall Girl to see the ethereal beauty of the deer in the moonlight.
Precisely. Instead of just seeing a biological specimen foraging for food, she sees the wonder of it.
It's like imagination is a lens that magnifies everything, the terror and the beauty.
And connecting that back to Chesterton in his chapter The Ethics of Elfland, From Orthodoxy, he argues the world is inherently magical. We shouldn't look at nature with the cold eye of a pure rationalist.
Just seeing clockwork mechanics.
Right. We should look at it with the wonder of a fairy tale. Imagination appends meaning to the facts. Yes, it conjures monsters in the dark when you're afraid. But if you have the patience to sit still, to regulate your fear, the monsters shrink back.
And what remains is the wonder.
Exactly. If you kill the imagination to cure the fear, you also kill the wonder.
That is just a beautiful way to frame it. So let's look at what happens next. The deer eventually moves on. The immediate primal fear of the branch subsides. Her adrenaline drops. But she doesn't go to sleep.
No, she's wide awake now.
Wide awake. And suddenly she's confronted with a much larger presence. She's lying on her back on the flat granite, looking up at the sky. And because she's in the High Sierra, far away from light pollution, the story says the sky is so full of stars that the darkness itself seems to disappear.
It becomes an absolute ocean of light. The density of the Milky Way at that altitude is just staggering.
It paints such a visceral audio picture. I can almost feel the residual heat of the sun radiating up from the cold granite under my back.
It's a very physical scene.
It is. She lies there, looking at this impossible expanse, and she tries to pray. She falls back on the habits of her upbringing. But all her prepared words, the polite little formulas.
The thank you for this day, the please help me with this problem.
Right. They suddenly feel completely inadequate. They feel too small, like she's whispering polite little sentences into the face of an infinite roaring universe.
And she remembers the words of Father Benedict from back home. He used to say, God rarely shouts. Usually, he gives us enough quiet to hear a whisper.
But this doesn't feel like a whisper.
Not at all. The stars feel like something beyond sound. They feel like a physical weight pressing down on her.
And in that weight, she has this profound realization. She realizes she doesn't have to perform.
She doesn't have to have the right answers.
Right, or formulate a proper sentence, or justify her existence. The universe is entirely too big to care about her performance. She is just a girl on a stone beneath the sky.
What we're watching here is a psychological masterclass in the distinction between solitude and loneliness.
We use those interchangeably all the time.
We do, but they are fundamentally different. Loneliness is a deficit. It's perceived social isolation. It's painful. It spikes cortisol. It causes deep distress.
But solitude is different.
Solitude is a fullness. It's chosen physical isolation that allows for the presence of oneself. In this massive, starlit silence, Tall Girl is not lonely. She is experiencing pure solitude.
In that solitude, she's learning a deep unconscious confidence.
Because the silence doesn't use sentences. It's an absence of demand. It doesn't ask her to be funny or smart or helpful or successful.
If you look at our modern lives, it is almost impossible to find an absence of demand.
Oh, tell me about it.
Think about your average day. You're constantly processing inputs, your phone buzzes with an email from your boss, a text from a friend demands a witty response. Social media demands that you have an opinion on the news.
The algorithm demands your attention constantly.
It feels like you're walking on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, while someone stands next to you shouting instructions through a megaphone. You have to keep moving just to exist.
That is a perfect analogy. The modern world puts us in a state of ego depletion. Your emotional regulation is constantly being drained by these micro demands.
Right. And this mountain silence, lying on the granite, under the stars, it is the exact opposite of that treadmill. It's the feeling of stepping off it entirely.
The realization that you don't have to keep moving.
The earth continues to spin, the stars continue to shine, the granite holds your weight, and you don't have to do a single thing to earn it.
And stepping off that treadmill is fundamentally therapeutic. Clinically significant, really. There's a whole field of study around attention restoration theory.
It's like what Jean Mitchell talks about in her review of Ellen Montgomery's work, right?
Yes, the 19th century recognition of nature's therapeutic properties for depleted nerves. Montgomery wrote about this beautifully in her novel, The Blue Castle.
Where the protagonist escapes her demanding family.
Exactly. She lives in the Canadian wilderness, and the unjudging silence of nature literally cures her psychological ailments. Nature heals because it recalibrates our sense of scale.
The stars correct the scale. The file explicitly says that, and I want to make sure you hear the nuance in this because it's so important. The stars do not tell Tall Girl that her life is unimportant.
They don't crush her with nihilism.
No. What they show her is that her life is not the only important thing.
It's like adjusting the focal length on a camera lens. When we're caught up in daily anxieties, the lens is zoomed all the way in on our own face. A bad grade, a social slight, a missed opportunity, they fill the entire frame.
They feel like they're going to crush us.
But under the Milky Way, the camera zooms all the way out to a wide-angle shot. Your problems shrink back to their proper, manageable size within the context of an infinite universe.
You feel small, but in the most comforting way possible. The pressure is off.
It resets her nervous system.
Which brings us to the next morning. And this causal transition is fascinating. Because eventually, the sun rises. The solo overnight ends. She packs up her tarp, and she hikes back down the trail to rejoin her group.
And logically, you'd assume that after this profound spiritual experience, returning to a bunch of noisy teenagers would be jarring.
You'd think it would be so annoying. You'd want to stay on the mountain like a hermit to protect your peace.
But that isn't what happens.
Not at all. Her return to human voices isn't a failure of her solitude. It's actually the ultimate reward of it.
And this explores what happens to friendship under pressure. The trail gathers them back together, and I love this detail. When she walks back into camp, nobody rushes up and asks, "So what happened?"
Were you scared?
Right. Nobody asks because everyone knows that something happened. They all went through the same crucible. The mountains make private things stay private.
There's no need for superficial chatter. It's a shared, unspoken respect.
Which reveals the true purpose of a journey into silence. The point of wilderness therapy isn't to stay there indefinitely. The purpose is discovering what you will bring back to the community.
Because she emptied out all her social anxieties, she returns with vastly more room for other people.
The voices she might have found annoying a week ago have suddenly become music to her ears.
Which challenges this modern trope we have. We often think of going into nature to get away from people. We say, I just need a break from humanity.
I'm going to the woods.
Right. But the irony is that the wilderness actually teaches her how desperately we need each other. The isolation proves the value of the community.
We are deeply interdependent, and we see this at the Fireless Circle that night. They have a tradition of doing highs and lows, sharing the best and worst part of the experience.
Her low, understandably, was the paralyzing fear of leaving her sight when the sun went down.
But her high wasn't the stars or the flower or the deer.
Her high was hearing her friends' voices echoing through the trees before she even reached the meadow.
The sound of human connection was the peak of the mountain experience.
And then the storyteller in the group, this teenage boy, breaks the tension by joking about his healing voice, claiming full credit for her recovery.
Which is perfect. Laughter is wisdom, as the Chesterton Radio Constitution says. It deflates taking ourselves too seriously.
And then they just sit there in the dark, a circle with no fire. And they hold hands, just sitting in the silence, feeling the cold fingers and calloused palms of the people next to them.
It evokes such a warm camaraderie. It feels like a Norman Rockwell painting brought to life, or a scene from Louisa May Alcott's Little Women.
Yes, this profound appreciation for ordinary life, grounded in tactile reality.
They face the vastness of the universe, and now they're just holding hands in the dark. The oxytocin release of physical touch after a shared trauma is biologically designed to bond a group together.
But, and this is where it gets challenging, that appreciation doesn't just stay in her backpack. The real test is what happens when she comes back to civilization.
Bringing the mountains home. The reintegration phase is where growth is either cemented or lost.
The file describes this departure at the airport, and the contrast is stark. The airport terminal is the antithesis of the mountain meadow.
Everyone is looking down.
Staring at their phones, checking watches, listening to blaring announcements, trapped in these dopamine feedback loops. But Tall Girl isn't looking down. She looks out the huge window at the distant blue peaks, and she just whispers, "Thank you."
Gratitude is infinitely more interesting than cynicism. A cynical teen would be bitter the trip is over. She is profoundly grateful it happened at all.
And on the plane, she writes this incredible line in her journal, "The mountains taught me how to listen. Now I have to learn how to keep listening after I get home."
That is such a heavy realization. It's easy to listen to the silence when you're alone in a granite cathedral with no cell service.
The silence is forced on you.
Right. It's much harder to maintain that posture when you're surrounded by the frantic noise of everyday life.
Which is why ordinary evenings sometimes become the most defining moments. The mountain was the classroom, but home is the final exam.
Growing up isn't about losing wonder. It's about rediscovering it at home.
So she gets back here to Atchison. She visits the little station on Commercial Street, right where we are. She talks with her father by the microphone, and she sees this station light glowing in the dark window.
It acts as an anchor, a faithful presence. She realizes that while she was in the wilderness, this light was here, burning steadily. You can only journey into the unknown if you have a safe harbor to return to.
And then she goes home to her bedroom, and she tries to write the story down. She's trying to capture this profound silence on paper. And she realizes that true experience happens all at once in this massive rush. But a story requires time.
You have to choose a linear path through it.
Exactly. And right as she's grappling with how to translate the infinite sky into words, her sister barges into the room.
The ultimate jarring interruption. The collision of the profound and the mundane.
Her sister just throws the door open and barks that she has 6 minutes before they have to leave. Now, the old tall girl might have panicked or gotten angry that her spiritual glow was being ruined.
But she doesn't?
She doesn't panic. She just puts the pen down and she lets the story wait.
That shows incredible emotional regulation. She has internalized the patience of the mountains. The granite didn't rush. The deer didn't sprint. She realizes the story will still be there in 6 minutes or 6 years.
She isn't fighting reality anymore.
Which leads to that beautiful symmetry at the very end.
Later that evening, she and her father are walking home down Commercial Street. The environment is entirely different. Bright streetlights block out most of the sky.
It's nothing like the High Sierra.
Nothing like it. But she stops, and she looks up anyway. She scans the slivers of dark sky between the branches, and she finds just 1 or 2 faint stars shining through the city glow.
Because she learned where to look. In neurology, there's the reticular activating system, the RAS. It filters out unnecessary info. Like if you buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Oh, right. Your brain is programmed to care about them.
Exactly. The mountains reprogrammed her RAS to look for the light and the darkness. She didn't need the whole Milky Way. She just needed a single point of light to trigger the memory of the silence.
She found the extraordinary hiding inside the ordinary.
And that ties back to Chesterton's concept of stereoscopic vision. True innocence is strength, and home itself is an adventure. The wilderness didn't give her a permanent escape from the world.
It gave her a new way of looking at her own life.
It gave her that stereoscopic vision, the ability to be deeply astonished at the world and yet entirely at home in it.
Astonished at the world and yet at home in it. That really is the goal, isn't it? To sit on your own front porch, look out at your familiar street, and see it as an adventure just as thrilling as the high country.
It makes you realize that the greatest adventures are rarely the biggest ones. They aren't always summiting the peak. Often, they're the quiet evenings alone under a tarp or sitting on a porch with a friend that quietly shape who we become. We leave home sometimes simply to gain the perspective required to learn how much we actually love it.
We leave home to learn how much we actually love it. That is a thought to hold on to.
It really is.
So as we wrap up our time together tonight, I want to leave you, the listener, with a challenge. Next time you find yourself alone in the dark, whether you're out camping in the woods or just sitting in a quiet room in your own house after everyone else has gone to sleep, try leaving the light off for just 1 extra minute. Fight the instinct to banish the dark. Don't reach for your phone. Don't flip the switch. Give the silence a chance to introduce you to yourself.
You might be surprised by who you meet in that minute.
Well, it's getting late. The porch light is still on, and somewhere out there, the mountains are still keeping watch. Thanks for spending the evening with us here on the Front Porch. Until next time, good night, friends.